So many graduate students struggle with success because of imposter syndrome. So today we're talking about what it is, what it's not, and ways to think about it so we can be successful. But first, what is imposter syndrome? It is the persistent inability to recognize that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved because of their efforts. Or in other words, it's really hard for you to feel like you belong somewhere because something inside of you is telling you that you're not good enough, that your success is not real, and that everyone around you is somehow better than you. Imposter syndrome is powerful because it tricks your mind into discrediting all of the things that you have succeeded at and somehow gaslights you into thinking that all of your achievements were either not that big of a deal, completely made up, or not deserved. And because of that nagging fear or voice in the back of your head, it can make it very difficult for you to feel like you can thrive and continue to succeed. There are a lot of reasons why you may feel imposter syndrome. If you're in a new situation and you experience mistakes or even possible failures, you can somehow use that as evidence as to why you shouldn't be there or why you're not good enough or worthy. And if we come from a community of people or from a society that discredits our achievements because of our multiple identities, or if you just don't have that big of a support system that doesn't celebrate your wins, it can be really easy to internalize negative messaging, especially from people or from communities that we hold near and dear to our heart. And because of these things, imposter syndrome can feel very difficult to overcome. And if you come from a historically excluded population, when you enter into grad school, new barriers arise and things can feel even more difficult. More acute forms of discrimination may arise. You may feel isolated, and the community and support system that you might have had before is no longer there in the same capacity. And because of this, it can feel very isolating, lonely, and overwhelming. You may have even felt like you belonged in undergrad, but now at this new level, when you are facing all of these new obstacles, people, and experiences, you may feel like you're not smart enough, you don't know enough people, and all of those things can cause imposter syndrome to show its ugly head. But here's the thing. Feelings do not always equate reality. Because if you enter into a space that has historically wanted to keep people like you out, like academia is notorious for being anti-poor, racist, sexist, ableist, elitist, and the list goes on. And then you come in with one or any combination of these identities, of course there are going to be messaging, systems, and experiences that are going to signal and make you believe that you don't belong. And that's simply because that institution wasn't made for you to succeed. It wasn't made for you to belong. And I want to start off by saying there will be people, institutions, policies that are 100% explicitly saying that you don't belong. I have heard with my own two ears faculty tell graduate students that they don't belong, that they're not good enough, that they're not cut out to be here. And the truth comes down to it, that was not a reflection of the student's ability to succeed, but rather a reflection of that person's biases and prejudices. And I just think that's an important thing to acknowledge. Because if we're going to be honest and combat imposter syndrome, then we need to really recognize and diagnose what are the things that are triggering or causing you to have it. So yes, 9 times out of 10, there are systems in place to exclude you. There are systems in place to tell you that you're not good enough and you shouldn't be here. There are even systems in place to diminish and undermine the achievements and successes that you have had in the past. And with all of that said, it is still possible for you to succeed. And while all of this is true, I do think it's important that we are able to recognize and give this a name. So when we're feeling moments of imposter syndrome, we can stop and reflect and ask ourselves, is this a reality or a reflection of my abilities? Or instead, is this systemic oppression? Am I not going to make an A in this assignment because I'm not good enough? Or is this professor punitive and is trying to make an example out of me because I'm not doing things their way? Am I really not good at writing? Or does this particular faculty member have preconceived notions about people who look like me and instead is actively belittling the work that I am doing? As a personal antidote, every B that I have ever earned in grad school was 100% a product of active discrimination from a professor. And I'm gonna be honest, the first time it happened, it caught me off guard and really hurt my feelings. But as I progressed into the academic world and got to meet more professors and more students and learn more about what are the expectations of good writing or good academic work, I recognize that some people will not have the ability to accurately assess my ability. And that is not my burden to carry. And so yeah, if you experience imposter syndrome, this assessment to decide, is this systemic or is this personal, may not be easy to do at first. Recognizing the red flags, understanding what are the policies and what discrimination can look like can be difficult and nuanced. And that's why it's really important to have community with people that share your complex identities, with a support network of people who have gone through the process and succeeded, and kind mentors that can guide you and give you honest, constructive feedback that will help you build on your skill sets to be a more successful academic. Now, if you feel like your imposter syndrome is more internal and that you're not a victim of systemic oppression, or you don't feel these same type of pressures, that's still okay. There are still strategies for you to work to diminish the sensations that are really hindering your ability to recognize your success. I think one of the first steps to do when you are feeling imposter syndrome is to try to take note of what are your triggers before you start to have this sensation. In a lot of cases, what we may consider imposter syndrome may be us really just responding to a need or an insecurity about our own capabilities. So on one hand, you may be feeling like you don't belong, but in reality, you may just need extra support or resources to better improve a skill set or to better understand a concept or an approach that is relevant to your work. Are you feeling like your contributions in class just aren't good enough? Maybe instead of giving yourself a value judgment, spend time speaking with the professor, talking more about expectations, learning the vocabulary that may be expected for you in your field, while also taking time to have conversations in low-risk situations with your graduate or fellow graduate students. So you can have dialogue where you don't feel like you're being tested or observed or judged, but rather practicing sharing your ideas and using the new academic terminology that you're expected to do as a PhD or graduate student. I say this often, but the truth is grad school is not about knowing everything. And even more shockingly, it's not even about being smart. Grad school is a training program, and you are being trained to be an academic. And so there are skill sets and expectations and trades that come with this training. And most skill sets usually don't come natural to most people. And so while you may feel like you're in a deficit because you don't have as much training as somebody else, or how you respond to the training may be different, it still doesn't mean that you don't have the capability or the capacity to learn the skill. You just may need accommodation, extra support, or new or different types of resources to help you get to where you go. A lot of the times, our inability to succeed is not a reflection of our capacity to learn the skill, but rather it shows a problem with the larger academic system that doesn't have the ability to support or mentor you in the best way. Knowing what our insecurities are, knowing why we feel our ways, can be a useful tip or a useful thing to have so we can advocate for the support and resources and mentorship that we need and deserve. Now, I do have an entire playlist that's about reading and writing and just about PhD basics in general. So if you're interested in just learning those skills in a safe, quiet, and private environment, that could be a great stepping stone. And all of those videos will be in the description below, but I really do think it's important to make sure you are speaking with faculty, graduate students, and building community on your campus and generally to make sure that you have real life feedback to support you and your success. I also think journaling can be a powerful tool to combat imposter syndrome. When you are working on a big project, a research article, or even a grant, by keeping tabs of all of the little things that you do to produce whatever product you're working towards can help you recognize when you succeed, when it gets published, when you win an award or earn a fellowship or a grant, that work wasn't a mistake or wasn't you tricking anybody, but instead, based on of your detailed notes of efforts, was a product of many, many hours, many approaches to making sure that you were successful. Additionally, think journaling, how many times you got it revised, how many people reviewed it, who were those reviewers and their status, and keeping tabs of all the people that were helping you along your journey can also help combat imposter syndrome by one, showing that people believe in you. People are not going to review your articles, look at your grant statements, help you formulate a research publication if they don't think that you're worthy, if they don't think you're a good person. And so by having this tabulated again, you can remind yourself that people are rooting for you. It also can help if you get rejected, because let's face it, grad school, most of us aren't going to get rejected and rejected a lot. And at the end of this video, I will put this video where I talk about how to deal with rejection. But the truth is, it's gonna happen. And that doesn't mean you're not worthy, or it shouldn't substantiate your belief that you're an imposter and you don't belong. But instead, by reviewing those notes and seeing all the effort that you put in, but also all the people that were supporting you, how many times you revised it and how much work you've put in, it should remind you that this isn't you not being good enough, but rather just sometimes things don't work out. And that is completely okay. Your worth is not dependent on somebody else's ability to assess or reward it, but rather about your ability to recognize that your efforts are valuable and that over time you will continuously progress and get better. I also recognize that some people have imposter syndrome where it can trick their mind into thinking that somehow their success is a fluke, that somehow they have tricked people into allowing them to get into grad school or winning that award or earning some type of grant. And when it comes down to it, there were people that were probably more deserving. And I think this is an interesting form of imposter syndrome because I genuinely feel like if you were able to trick all the admissions committees, all of your faculty, some of your graduate friends and your family, and other academics that you're working with, people that have been doing this work for years and years and years, who have met hundreds, if not thousands of graduate students, academics, and professors and more, that alone is a skill set that may actually mean that you're overqualified. Meaning the ability to trick all of those people and convince them you're worthy is not a testament that you don't belong, but rather a testament that maybe you should be running the place. All jokes aside, I do think it's important to take this very seriously and genuinely ask and reflect on your own motives. If that award or being admitted into something is a fluke, do you genuinely feel like all of those people aren't good at assessing talent, even though they have years and years of experience assessing talent? And how do you know this isn't how things work? How do you know that what you think is fake or trickery is not what everybody is doing, and you just happen to do it better? Again, then this would be a testament to your achievements, your success, your skills, not your ability to manipulate. I think it's important to reflect many of the people who are making these decisions have been doing so for a really long time. And more times than not in graduate school, especially when it comes to admissions or grants or awards, for most of us, it's probably our first time doing that thing. And I feel like if we're honest, we can recognize that the people making the decision have way more understanding and have way more experience knowing what a good candidate would look like than what we may think a good candidate would look like. And so rather than trying to nitpick or see what they got wrong or missed out about you, rather try to see what they liked about you and how, if it's not true, you can work every day to embody that more and more. Because graduate school is all about learning. And if you came into graduate school knowing everything, what would be the purpose of going through this process? As PhD students, the goal is to learn how to learn and to learn how to communicate. And there are many skills that go into those two foci. And so every day when we come into our graduate programs, it's our job to continue to strive to get better and to learn more. It is not our job to force ourselves towards perfection or to know everything that we could as a graduate student. And yes, unfortunately, because elitism and other types of systemic oppression, there's going to be things that tell you or try to convince you that if you don't have it now, you'll never get it. But frankly, that's just not true. And there are many ways to overcome what we would consider deficits and hopefully help you push away your feelings of imposter syndrome. And a big part of handling imposter syndrome is dealing with rejection. And so if you need more support on how to deal with rejection, especially as a graduate student, you should watch this video next. If you have any questions, please leave many comments down below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you next week.